live. Hi, everyone. People are pouring in. It's good to see you. I usually I do the same spiel. So if you've been to a Nia Centre event, I hope this doesn't sound boring, but I always say there's like tons of Zoom links and events that you could be at right now. So I'm very gracious and happy that you've chosen to click this link and come to this event and spend time with us. So many great people coming in, a lot of familiar names. Hello. I always want to say the names too, but I don't want to like out anyone, but I see you. We all know who you are. Hello, hello. If you've seen my face before, my name is Adom. I'm the program manager at Nia Centre, and I'm joined by, like, I think this is the biggest panel that I've been on since the pandemic, so I feel like I'm in a room full of, like, friends, but I'm joined by Pamela Edmonds, stylo, starr, Faiza, Sonya, Angelo, Emkay, and Ghislain. Feel free to say hello in the chat. You know, we're going to get, like, really MSN vibes right now. Just drop your your Instagram name, say hello, send some love to our panelists, you know, drop an emoji. Yeah, I love a good chat box, so this is going to be fun. I think we're going to start in about 3 minutes. Hi, I love the chat. I'm just going to be in here right now. But yeah, we'll start in about 3 minutes, so get some water, get some tea, get comfy, make sure your laptop's plugged in or your phone. You have a 2-hour event ahead of us, but it's like jam-packed with a lot of goodness. So yeah, you know, if you're making dinner right now, maybe turn us up a little bit over your blender noise or whatever, but so grateful to see everyone. Hi, Sarah. Hey, Ramya. Hello, everyone in the chat. Oh, that's great. Hi, Kofi. Oh my God, I'm just in the chat right now. I feel like I'm ignoring everything and I'm like living my MSN best life right now. So yeah, we're gonna give it about 3 minutes or so and then we're gonna go live. Or, I mean, we're live, but we're gonna get started. I miss it too. I miss it too. I mean, there's people who still, I think, use chat like online. Like it's not MSN, but there's like chat rooms and stuff. So
I'm coming from the age of ICQ, so
yeah,
I was
ahead of
ICQ
me
before MSN. Yeah.
I think as far back as I go is AOL, and that's it. And I was like 5 years old. I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah, we used to get the CDs from my mom's bank and get like the trial of
14 days of free internet.
Yep. Yep. Every month we would have to update and get another CD.
Yeah. Or like kick your mom off the phone because like you need to like be online with your friends. Yeah.
How
This is
else am I
dial-up,
gonna download my Sailor Moon anime?
Stylo, are we gonna change the point of this talk? We should just change it to downloading Sailor Moon anime online because we could really talk each
A
other.
whole other, yeah, we'll probably need to develop a podcast or something.
Yeah, I got it. You had a party line. Yeah, that's so funny. Some folks here recognize ICQ. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I think we're in a good place to get started. There's quite a few of us here in the room, so I feel love. It's very nice and warm. For those, again, who don't know this little box of my face, my name is Adom, and I'm the program manager at Nia Centre for the Arts. And again, if you don't know, Nia Centre for the Arts is a Black Arts Center that supports, promotes, and showcases an appreciation for the arts from across the African diaspora. So that looks like everything from supporting amazing initiatives like this, the Curator in Residence program, which I'll touch on a little bit later, artist residencies, youth programming, youth mentorship, exhibitions, we do it all. And so I'm so just fortunate to be in this room with Pamela, stylo, and 4 like just amazing artists, and Angelo, the amazing founder of Pitch Magazine. But before we kind of get into all that, I know we're kind of all coming from different places, and I might actually ask everyone to do a quick round of intros and tell us where you're calling in or video conferencing in from. But I myself, I'm calling in, we're videoing from Toronto, Ontario, specifically Scarborough. And typically we'd all kind of be in one room, whether we're at the McMaster Museum of the Art, so we're at Nia Centre, and we're all kind of grounded in the same space. But right now we're all kind of on different spaces. So I want to acknowledge the land that I'm on. And as I do this, I think it's important that you kind of take some time to acknowledge the land that you're on as well. And I'm sure some of us are just down the street from each other and we don't really know it, but I specifically must acknowledge and give thanks to the Huron-Wendat Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, the Mississaugas of the New Credit Nation, the Mississaugas of the Scugog Island First Nation, and the Six Nations of the Grand River as traditional inhabitants of the lands of the City of Toronto, where I stand on the bones of Indigenous people of this land. I must also acknowledge that I and we are all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who have come here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Today, I pay tribute amongst all of you to the ancestors of those of African origin and descent. So yeah, I'm just very grateful to be able to do this in my home, in a space where, even though my feet are on the ground, I certainly am in a space where I feel very grounded. And that's a lot of just kind of the energy that I get from you guys from the Zoom. So I'm very thankful for it, whether it's in the chat or wherever. And just some quick like housekeeping. Again, if we were in a real space, I'd say washrooms are to your left, snacks are in the back. But if this is, if you're new to kind of like the Zoom space and how it works, in terms of ways of engaging, I think it's great. We want to give love to our artists and our curators and our, the folks on this session. So if you have a question, I ask that you put that in the Q&A box. You have some options at the bottom. That just kind of helps me make sure that your question gets asked. Because if it's in the chat, it might kind of get lost. But feel free to use the chat to, again, send love to everyone on the screen. If you're feeling something, you can send virtual snaps. If you've got like little comments that you want to send to people, the chat box is where it's at. If you do pose a question in the chat, I'll try and get to it, but there's a chance I might forget. So that's kind of it for housekeeping, but I think I really want to just move into picking up some people right now on this call. And the first one is going to be Pamela. So Pamela, just give us a little like wave, just so we know who's who. Just to talk a little bit about the nature of this program, there's a curator in residence program, which kind of was ideated before I arrived at Nia Centre. And from what I understand, there's a great need to support the emerging Black curators who are within the city, this region, and specifically within this country. And so the Curator in Residence program was ideated by Pamela and supported by, Alika specifically through the Nia Centre of the Arts to provide a learning opportunity for an emerging Black curator to work with and within both an institution and a community setting, working alongside the MMA Senior Curator Pamela Edmonds, as well as other curators and advisors. Stylo has, worked to gain skills and insight and resources to further her independent curatorial practice while producing a public exhibition, with support with Nia Centre, that is the Remix. So to tell you a little bit about Pamela, like truly she deserves she kind of is her own introduction. You have an amazing legacy, so I'll try and do my best. But after I read your bio, I really just want to pass the mic to you and allow you to speak to it a little bit. But originally from Montreal, Edmonds holds a BFA in studio art / art history and an MA in art history from Concordia University. She's also held curatorial positions at A Space Gallery, the Art Gallery of Peterborough, and most recently the Thames Art Gallery in Chatham, where she served as a curator / director. Edmonds has been an advocate for inclusive curatorial practices and cultural equity through her career, which is evidenced by her work with numerous collectives and grassroots organizations. Edmonds is currently based in Hamilton, Ontario, where she holds the position of Senior Curator at the McMaster Museum of Art. And for more info, you can check her out at pe-curates.space, which is like the dopest curatorial website name, where I'm just like, how did you find that and how did you come up with it? But Pamela, please, the mic is on for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and this dope exhibition.
All right. Thank you, Adom. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Wow. It's been a journey. I have to say, it's been a journey. And I'm so excited to see this day come, for this special event, this launch for Pitch, for the special feature, for the Cut, the Tear, the Remix, Contemporary Collage and Black Futures, curated by Stylo Starr. Really, really, big ups to you, to all the artists. The virtual launch, I'm so excited for that next week. So please, people, you got to come back for that. I'm speaking today from Hamilton, from my kitchen. I'm in Hamilton. I'm situated on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas and the Haudenosaunee Nations, which is lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And, first of all, before I get into all of the, conversation about the mentorship and such. I want to express gratitude to all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been taking care of this land, you know, from time immemorial on Turtle Island, you know, and who continue to do that, who continue to take care of the land. And I want to acknowledge and really find ways that we can all, you know, join in and support of decolonial and indigenous movements for sovereignty and self-determination. And I want to thank Nia Centre. I want to thank all the folks at the museum, Elise, you know, for your communications, getting the word out about the project. Canada Council for the Arts, who gave us some dollars, you know, from the Sector Innovation and Development Program. You know, this mentorship was meant to be in person. You know, we wanted to have an exhibition in Hamilton and in Toronto, but, you know, we moved, we adapted, we shifted, you know, we went through the twists, we went through the turns, but, you know, it all came to fruition in a beautiful way. And I feel fortunate to have the opportunity to work with stylo, to work with Angelo. You know, thank you both for your openness, for your patience, Angelo, for your support as we edited and edited, as we edited over the months, over and over again, you know. But you know, Angelo, also, I'm continually inspired by your work, you know, as a busy Max student, having a full course load, you know, this is an important creative vehicle for Black artists locally and beyond. And, you know, when you came to me last year, when you brought the magazine to the museum, like when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is an important initiative, and I wanted to find a way to support what you're working on and what you're doing. And so, you know, people need to buy this, you need to sell this out, you need to support what's happening with this work, because it's special. Right. And you know, I feel fortunate to be a part of it, and thank you everybody for being here. And so I'm going to start. I'm not going to go too much in because I have a tendency to cry at things. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
I'm going to cry. So
I'm not going to cry. But I'm going to introduce stylo now with her bio, and then we'll get started. So stylo refers to herself as a visual alchemist now, which is the best term ever, okay, first of all. And she's currently based in Hamilton, so we're in the same city. She has a BFA from Brock, and she studied at Mohawk College, studied design there. She's a founding member of COBRA, which is the Coalition of Black and Racialized Artists in Hamilton. She's worked for numerous organizations in the city, like Center 3 for Artistic and Social Practice, the Hamilton Arts Council, McMaster. She curated the 2020 BFA graduation exhibition. She's had exhibitions at the Art Gallery of Hamilton, Art Gallery of Burlington. She's really known for her multi-layered collage work, which has been featured on public installations, international publications, on apparel. And her visual investigations surround predominantly Black folks and their relationship to basic principles and elements of design, and reaffirms their agency as revered subjects of art history. Thank you everybody for being here tonight. And so stylo, the screen is yours right now.
Thank you so much. Oh, all the words that I was preparing just kind of like fluttered out of my brain. Thank you so much. What an honor. Thank you to everyone that showed up tonight. I'm seeing some familiar faces in the list and in the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm stylo, and this is the fruits of our labor for the last few months. We started in October, I think, when we first started. And because of the shift and the pivot that we had to do based on COVID, we really didn't know outside of we have to have something concrete, because we don't know if we're actually going to have a concrete show. And so I'm really blessed to see how things have kind of come together and finally congealed and are ready to show the world. I'm holding in my hot little hands a little proof of the magazine. I'm so excited for each and every single one of you to pre-order right now if you can. And to see just the bounty and the abundance of Black creativity, and knowing that it's coming out of pretty much the GTHA, like this little cluster of creative booms that are happening here. So I'm really honored to be able to present this in support with the museum and Nia, of course. Angelo, it's been so awesome working with you. I am very detail oriented, so Pamela wasn't joking when she mentioned edits upon edits upon edits, because I had notes, and I'm very concerned with preserving and presenting Black creation and creativity in a way that is, on a level, and that is worthy of praise and of what's the word that I'm looking for, like extreme fanfare. And this is it, 100%. Shout out to Hot Cone Design, Pamela's hookup for some extra expertise on the layout design, really helped elevate everything. But the project itself, to bring it back in, was really a great lesson on how to work on something that isn't necessarily my personal expression. So I am a practicing visual artist by trade. Curation wasn't really anything that I considered for myself. And after working on a couple of events with Pamela, we were talking back and forth, and she was like, I think something's there. And I, with the experience that I had curating the Suma show last year, it was so great just meeting different artists and seeing how they create and seeing their process and tying it all together in a show that is cohesive, that I can show to other people and let them see the cool and the greatness that I see. So when this came up, the idea was, well, I'm a collage artist, and I'm concerned predominantly and pretty much only with Black culture. So how do we break that apart? There are so many Black creatives, not only just in this magazine and who are submitting to this, but like Canada-wide, and how do we open that up? And that was the first objective, and just trying to meet creatives who are also working in cut and paste, or at least in collage to some degree. You will all see next week the other flip side of collage. We're taking kind of the traditional introduction this week with Hand Cut. But it really blew my mind to see collage being used in so many different ways, and even in similar ways, but looking completely and entirely different. So it was really an honor to meet and to curate these artists, some spellbinding talent that is in these pages of the magazine, but then also in the show, the cut, the tear, the remix. Every time I sat down with the artist, and I know we didn't get to meet each other too often because we're in Zoom land, so it's, whenever we have the availability. But it was always such a treat to have, our studio talks, our studio visits, and just to kind of get to know the process. Like, collage is cut and paste, but what is it? Like, what do you do, and why this? So, thank you to all the artists. Thank you to everyone for being a huge part of this. I want to bring Angelo into the fold of the conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and give him a little bit of an intro first before we have a little conversation with Adom kind of leading us through that. So Angelo is a third-year student at McMaster University, as we mentioned, working super hard, studying health sciences with a minor in African and African diaspora studies. Snaps to that. He created Pitch Magazine during his second year, and Angelo is inspired by his personal music and magazine collection, the recent establishment of the McMaster's first Black Student Association, which amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the realization that there was a lack of spaces for Black student expression, which is still maybe not as true, but we're laying our own brick in the entire foundation of that, and we'll probably talk about that a bit more. Angelo, I wanted to mention, is self-taught in publishing and graphic design, did a fire job on both issue 1 and issue 2, and is fueled by his love for the culture, and you're gonna see that in every single page of Pitch Magazine. So it's an honor. I'm so proud of you, Angelo. Welcome aboard. Go ahead to unmute your mic. Come on into the convo.
Also just want to quickly, because I feel like it's so important that we like just spotlight the artists who are also here. So to get a little flow of the evening, we're going to talk a little bit about Pitch Magazine. And I'm also going to sneeze any second now, but the significance.
Bless you in advance. Look at the light.
Thank you. The significance of Black art publications, but we also are joined by 4 of the analog or cut paste, more traditional collage artists. And so, we're gonna do about 10 minutes where we talk with Pitch, and you can find out where you can pre-order the magazine. I'm gonna do a little bit of a sneak peek, so you folks here will be able to see what's inside the magazine. But before I even go into that, I want to just give a shout out. And when I say your name, just show us some love on screen. I'll read the bios a little bit later in the session, but we have Emkay Adjei-Manu with us, one of the artists. Hello, Emkay. We have Faiza with us as well. Shout out to you, Faiza, who I should say just got their hair braided for this, so big ups to you, Faiza. We have Sonya Mwambu here with us as well, and then we have Ghislain Timm. So we are really amongst greats in this session, and I just wanted to give some space to shout out the amazing artists that we have. But first let's talk a little bit about Pitch Mag. Angelo, I also have to mention that Angelo was a student, which I find just so amazing, because I know when I was in my undergrad, you could barely catch me in class, let alone creating a whole significant publication. So I don't think that should go kind of without addressing and
relatable. Yes.
But I'm curious if you could just tell us a little bit about Pitch Magazine, how it started, how it's going, what are your intentions, and specifically tell us about issue 2 and how big of a project this is.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Stylo, and for all the questions, Adom. I guess I'll start with how it started. So as Stylo said, I started it in my 2nd year. And I'd say it was kind of because a combination of things. And generally, I'd say the 2 things were kind of just being into print and a lot of other Black magazines. So I don't know if you guys know Places and Faces. And other kind of print magazines, even Wax Poetics, because I'm a big record collector. So stuff like that. And then as well, just kind of realizing that there was when I got it to Mac in my 1st year, it was kind of a difficult transition from high school. And so I kind of felt like I needed a space to kind of express a lot of those things. And I felt like there wasn't anywhere kind of on campus where we could express our own specific experiences as Black people. So it came out of kind of those 2 things. And then Stylo mentioned the Black Students Association, and that was really big in building up my confidence, because at the end of my 1st year, they kind of started talking about building it. And then I applied to be on the exec team, and I got on the exec team. And just meeting every week with the Black students on campus was kind of just really inspiring, and seeing everybody come together to BSA gang, shout out Wahi. It was just really inspiring to see Black people come together as a community. And I think even at the same time, there was a lot of aspiring Black students came up, and Black space and different clubs on campus. So it's just very inspiring to see, people put themselves out there and start to make spaces for Black voices on campus. And I think just combining that with, my own interests into art and poetry and just magazines in general, I kind of came up with the idea and thought, why not just go for it and put myself out there?
Right. I think what you mentioned really speaks to the significance of Black student-run spaces on campuses, whether it's a college or university or any kind of academic institution, because so much greatness comes from that collective just organizing and just collective thought of Black students carving a space for them in a campus that oftentimes is like pretty exclusionary or just doesn't have these spaces at all. So, you know, for those who are on the call, or I know myself, I would have loved to hear something like this when I was in university. I was very much like, you know, go home, go to school, and that's it. But the beauty that comes from, you know, these Black student unions and groups is quite significant. So I'm so glad that you're able to carve those spaces and work so meaningfully in those spaces as well. I'm going to do a quick little showcase of issue 2, but I'm wondering if you can just give us a quick little taste of, like, to me and to Stylo and everyone on this call, issue 2 is like the biggest thing ever, but maybe impart some of that like significance on those watching. Why is issue 2 different from some of your other issues? Where can people purchase it or pre-order, I should say? Tell us about the swag you're wearing. Like, pitch is a huge deal, and I want to just kind of big it up for about 4 minutes or so.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the big difference between I have it here. So the big difference between issue 2 and the first issue was that I kind of brought more people into the magazine, not in the sense of like contributing like pieces, but having different people kind of help me out in like graphic design. And working with Stylo has been just incredible. Like, I know you guys talked about edits and whatever, but like if it wasn't for you guys, like it would not be, you know, to this level. And I think that's where the gap between like issue 1 and issue 2 was. Like, as much as I love issue 2, I kind of just, I wasn't into like graphic design or anything. So I kind of just took, you know, what I was working with, and I just tried to put it out, you know, do the best that I could, which is fine. But again, yeah, I think issue 2 just speaks to a sense of community. Like, once I put that out, more people were interested in it, and they were willing to help out. You know, that's all just brought into this issue.
Right.
I think it comes across very well. I think you guys will be very excited.
Let's show the people what they want to see. So just to give some context, maybe of Stylo, I'll let you kind of, because you can speak to this so much better than I can. What are we looking at? And I'm going to scroll through very slowly, but, you know, give us like a 2-minute, you know, spark notes. What's going on here? All this amazingness.
That just reminds me of all the edits we had to do on this written piece. So this is the curatorial statement that is supporting the show, The Cut, The Tear, The Remix, Contemporary Collage, and Black Futures. It is one of my first professional writing forays, and what a foray it was. It's complemented by some of my original pieces. So these are some of my collage pieces. That one's actually hanging on my wall right here, but it's higher up so you can't see it. But basically I go into, you know, why collage, why now? And how does that kind of go into why we're also discussing the Afrofuture right now, and kind of just weaving those two parallels together and braiding into this beautiful show. So for me as an artist, whenever I do a gallery show, it's necessary for me to have some kind of publication as archive, as record of my show having happened. And I feel like that's something that I really wanted to honor the artists in this show with, is something that they can take off of their bookshelf one day, you know, 5 years from now, and be like, this was the show that I was in. This is a catalog of some of my artwork, you know. So this was, it was just really serendipitous how things came together, because I met Angelo last year, literally the day before things shut down. Like, I was in the first issue of Pitched, and I had submitted to it, and we met up to exchange copies the day before things shut down. This was also around the time I was curating the Suma show. And so I was already kind of working with Pamela, so things were kind of already happening. And once we got the green light from Canada Council to kind of put this project into motion, things just kind of started clicking. Like, oh, well, we got publication, we got a link for this and we got a link for that. So it was really beautiful. I love this piece.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful how things came together. It's nothing short of alchemy. And this is exactly why I call myself a visual alchemist, because there is a real magic in being able to create like this, such a beautiful, like the detail and the beauty in this piece. I can go on and on about each and every single one of the pieces in the show, because it's just really beautiful to see different levels of sensitivity to a collective ancestry, that even though we are so fragmented and coming from different histories, we are coming from a one history. I think that's maybe the Jamaican in me of many one people. But yeah, and Kofi, for those of you who were at the event last week, you know, just, it's so much and it's such an abundance that we were, and you know, this is just the 8 artists that we were able to showcase for the show. There were many others that submitted that we weren't able to, you know, properly give love to, but it was a really beautiful moment in reckoning, in that, you know, we aren't all creating separately in a vacuum. Like there are other Black creatives that are creating very similarly to us. And it was really beautiful to kind of bring everyone into the fold. And yeah, I'm really excited for everyone to see it and to hold it in their hands, because it's such a beautiful and important piece of publication.
I think as we, you know, celebrate the publication and the feature, it's significant and important to look back at, you know, the history and the kind of the context that pitch is existing in of Black art publications. And I know, Stylo, I've heard you speak about this, you know, even hearing you say that every exhibition is very critical that you have that publication and that physical piece of, you know, whether it's a booklet or a program, having a tactile thing that people can take away and artists can also reference later on is so significant. But that speaks to also the significance of print as a medium as a whole. So, you know, I'm wondering if you both can answer this question, but can you tell us a little bit about the history of Black art magazines within Canada and some of the challenges that they've historically faced? And then a quick follow-up to this is, are those challenges currently being faced by Black art publications in this day and age, or have they morphed and transitioned into other challenges or opportunities?
I'll jump in, because I actually wanted to mention too, it's important for me to have publications specifically as a Black artist. There's a lot of, you know, shady tricks that happen in the industry when you are a Black artist and you're trying to be on the professional level with all other contemporaries, and sometimes you get cheated out of the publication. Sometimes, you know, there's nothing in the budget, we can't, sorry, we get a photocopy. And that has happened to me. And so this was something that I was like, if I can help it, we are going to be archived in paper, in print. There is an ISSN number. It has been cataloged, you know, and I think as a collage artist, that being an archivist is something that's very integral to what I do and to my practice as well. It's important for me to keep things. I have boxes of magazines that have been donated to me. I've archived my life. I've been going through ticket stubs and pictures and photographs. So, you know, this kind of collection and this kind of archiving and history making and creating and being the director of that narrative is very important for me as a Black artist. And as far as Black publications, you know, it's always current. Like there's always Black publications being put out. I have shelves filled of Black publications, even coming out of Canada. But it's the willingness for bigger platforms to promote and to give them the same amount of love. Our communities, we know what's up, and like we will tell each other what's good and what's not, and who needs to pick up what. And that is becoming stronger, and that is a beautiful thing to see, because we're tired. Frankly, we're tired. You know, peace to Dante Wright and his family and everything that's going on right now. There's just no reason for me to avoid that, because we are all very tired right now. So this kind of focus and this kind of reverence for Black creation in the midst of all of this is so, so important to me. And I while will always be, and not to sound, I guess, nihilistic, but because there will always be obstacles and barriers and boundaries to face as Black creatives, at least trying to thrive and survive in a predominantly white world. This is important. This is the magic. This is the balm for me, at least as far as I am capable to contribute as a creative in the world. So yeah, Black Canadian publication is out there. I'm reading a really great book right now. What is her name? It's called Frying Plantain.
Zalika.
Right. I'm saying frying plantain, not plantain, like, you know, for everyone to get it. Frying plantain.
Yeah.
Yeah, Malika, incredible book. And, you know, it's a novel, so it's not visual arts, but I mean, in the same level, Black publication is out there. Seek it out because the platforms are there. And it's just about adding your voice. If you add your voice, we'll be as loud as all the other mainstream publications. And this is on the level, I assure you. But I could keep rambling, so I'm gonna come down off of my soapbox, but yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's no soapboxes here. I think we're all here to hear what you have to say. So I mean, it's all one big soapbox. So big up yourself and stand on it for sure. I want to make sure we have time to get to all the other artists. So I think we'll just wrap up with quickly, Angelo, if you could tell us, what are your hopes for Pitch Magazine? Where do you want to see it in the next 5 years, 10 years? What are your aspirations, and how can we as a community support you in getting there?
Yeah, those are really great questions. I'm not sure if I've even considered, 5 years in advance. Like I kind of just, as I said before, I started this just out of like interest kind of, and just trying to, put something into the community that I was already kind of a part of, and the spaces that we were in at the time. And I think from every step of the way, it's kind of just been, okay, where can we go from here? And like, I think the most important part in this whole kind of journey is just when people come up to me and they say like, this is incredible. Like I've never seen myself kind of reflected in a publication, or like, I've never seen this much Blackness or anything in a publication that was really, dignified and done really well, as stylo says.
Right.
So I think those are the most important things to me. And I think if I would have to like look in the future or whatever, it would just be the biggest thing for me would just be to have the people who need to see it. Like I want to be able to reach as many of those people as I can, because I think it's just very powerful to kind of see yourself, in a publication like this. And even in starting something like this, like I was inspired by people who did the same thing, and I was inspired by artists like the ones that are sitting here, like Sonya, Ghislain, Faiza, Emkay. Like works like yours are kind of what inspire me to take that step out of my comfort zone and put myself out there. And even if it's not art, like you see someone's work and you're just like inspired, you want to go out and do something, you want to go make a difference. Right. So I think those things are the most important to me, kind of just reaching all those people that, need to see it, and then, maybe inspiring people to do something for themselves.
Right. There's about 50 people on this call, so I'm just going to say, Angelo is amazing, Pitch is amazing, and these artists and stylo are amazing. So if you could, Angelo, put in the chat where folks can pre-order, I highly encourage folks to go pre-order, get your hands on this beautiful, I mean, I've heard it's like physically beautiful, like tactile-wise, a beautiful piece of printed work. So
it is gorgeous. Get one for yourself, get one for a friend.
Definitely, yes.
So
So link will be in the chat. It's
I also just wanted to interject. The book is Frying Plantain by Zalika Reed Benta. I want to make sure I give her props because the book is just incredible.
It's great. And she's actually a Toronto-based writer as well. So shout out to Zalika. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll put that in the chat for where you can, pick up your pre-order. You can follow Pitch online. Their Instagram is lit. It's a great online space. But I also love that you ended off just talking about how you're so inspired by the work of the artist, not only on this call and in this exhibition as a whole, but just in general, being inspired by the artistic world and energy that's around you, which is a just amazing segue. Thank you so much for that, into shifting the conversation towards the amazing, like truly phenomenal artists who Stylo, supported by Pamela, has curated for this exhibition. I'm going to go through and just introduce everyone again, quickly read their bios, and then we have a little bit of a Q&A, and I'll bring up, the editorial insert so you can get a closer look at the artwork that they're exhibiting. But do remember that next week, we're actually launching the digital exhibition as well, so you'll be able to view all their work in this just a fantastic online space that they've created, alongside the 4 other artists who are part of the exhibition. So I will begin with introducing Emkay Adjei-Manu. Very quickly, Emkay is an emerging second-generation Ghanaian Canadian, shout out, artist whose practice includes experimental writing, documentary/analog photography, and collage, examining themes of embodiment, remembrance, memory, sensuality, and spirit. They are drawn to the practice of collage for its expansiveness and ability to examine diverse ruminations of personal experiences. Beyond the tactility of traditional cut and paste, Emkay's work also features an individual and collective breathing practice, exploring the known and unknown stories that live within bodies. Emkay has worked in art space research and workshop facilitation with various nonprofit organizations, and is completing an undergraduate degree in social work at Ryerson University with intentions of pursuing a master's of fine art. Emkay, just give us a quick little hello. Hi, how are you? It's nice to see you.
Hi, hi everybody. I'm calling in from Brampton, Ontario. Excited to be here in this space and to share it with everybody and all the artists involved. So thank you.
Shout out to Brampton, and also shout out to Ghana. I saw you in the plantain comments, Emkay, after.
Thank you. I was trying to defend,
Yeah, appreciate it. Next, we have Faiza. Faiza is a visual artist born in Kensha, DR Congo, and raised in Edmonton, Canada, whose work includes photography, film, and visual collage. Whether it's through art or community organizing, Faiza's work is a meditation on the daily experiences of Africans within a Canadian context, exploring experiences of migration, memory, and kinship. She draws inspiration from her Congolese heritage, incorporating archival materials such as photographs, video, and audio sources. In 2018, she was awarded the Ali Mustafa Memorial Collective Photojournalism Award for a long-form photo documentary on the experiences of African, Caribbean, and Black newcomer pregnant women, and the barriers they face navigating the health and social services system. Faiza's work has been shown in the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts and at various community events, and she's currently based in Ottawa, Ontario. Faiza, say hello to the room.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm just grateful to be part of this. I am currently based in Ottawa on unceded Algonquin territory. Yeah, I'm just grateful that this is it's a Black curator, and just it's in a Black space. I'm grateful to have my work part of this. So yeah.
Thirdly, we have Sonya Mwambu. Sonya is an experimental filmmaker and editor based in Toronto. She's graduated from York University's film production program, where she develops her craft in shooting and experimenting with analog film, exploring concepts of race, language, and connection to her cultural identity. Born in Kampala and raised in Canada, her films are often centered around the intersections of Black identities. She has presented films at the Toronto History Museum and most recently with Cinema Politica based in Montreal. Say hello to the crowd, Sonya.
Hello, everybody. I'm so honored to be here and be amongst these artists. I'd like to give a special shout out to all the people who came to see me in my first panel and who helped, make who helped me make these films that are being exhibited. So I'm really grateful and I'm thankful, and I'm so excited for you all to see it next week.
Amazing. I'm so glad this is your first panel. Like, honestly, this is a great space. Like, if this was my first panel, I would be like incredibly happy. So amazing. And last but most certainly not least, we have Ghislain Timm. Ghislain is an experimental filmmaker and multidisciplinary artist based in Toronto. They are currently studying integrated media at OCAD University and studied film production at York University. Their work is inspired by Afro-Caribbean folklore and culture, Afrofuturism, soundscape, and cinema, and often appropriates archival film and imagery to shape nonlinear narratives from fragments of memories. Ghislain has worked at the Ada Slate Gallery at OCAD University, at FUGE, Canadian First Persons Alternate Film Festival in Shanghai, China, and has also participated as a resident artist in the Black Women Film Canada Leadership Program in Toronto 2019. Ghislain, say hello to our room full of lovely people.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. So to just give like some context and ground kind of the work that the artists have done, I'm going to start with you, Stylo, just to kind of lay the brickwork for the exhibition, the remix. So, you know, for those of us who are not aware, I know we've just seen the editorial insert, but give us like, you know, the curatorial statement or the meat and the intention behind the cut, the tear, and the remix, and, you know, how this exhibition came to be.
Yeah, I am so fueled by cut and paste, and the more I guess, familiarize myself with cut and paste and collage artists, the more I'm finding that a lot of them are Black artists. And I haven't quite cracked the code yet, but this editorial statement, curatorial statement, was kind of my foray into figuring out if collage is truly inherently Black, because that is my belief. A lot of people always start with Picasso whenever they talk about, or like Dadaism whenever they talk about the origins of collage, but it's so apparent in diasporic craftsmanship and art that I feel like it probably dates back a bit further. But you know, in the world of peer edited, reviewed, and journals and whatever, I have to do a little more research, but this was a really great foray into kind of figuring out that thread. And you know, the idea of collaging is not foreign to Black culture when we look at jazz, when we look at, I mean, specifically jazz and everything that was birthed from that, including hip hop. And then the idea of the remix coming out of that, and you know, the idea of sampling and taking things from, I guess, musical antiquity, and then chopping, screwing, and remixing it and giving it new life. That is something that is just what we do. So the show kind of came out of that that focus of collage, of remix, of Blackness, of just how this is in and of itself kind of creating the foundation of the Afrofuture, because that's also the lens that we're looking through. It's a lot of moving parts. So it was definitely a challenge to try and, I guess, write a map to how to explore this show and to how to, I guess, sit with what we're sitting with and what we're trying to grapple and what I'm trying to visualize as a show or as a presentation of a set amount of artists. So it's a lot. it is a lot. But that was kind of the inspiration was, you know, Black culture, collage, how are they, you know, one, what is the word that I'm looking for? In and of itself.
Yeah.
How are they the same thing, basically, and synonymous with each other? And, you know, not necessarily hip hop being present or discernible, I guess, in everyone's piece. But the idea of remixing is very much there, is taking from what's already existing in our own histories and our own past of what make us, and making something new as a statement of who we are now and how we can contribute to the future.
Right. Amazing. And I'll just a quick little reminder for folks in the audience. If you have questions, we have some time dedicated at the end. So if you've got questions for Pamela, Stylo, Angelo, or any of our artists, feel free to put those in the Q&A. We'll get to them. I want to start with a question for all of the panelists, but I'll kind of pose it to you first, Sonia, and then walk our way through the group. Tell us a little bit about how or what connection you have to hand cut collage in art making.
So it's a pretty interesting question for me because I'm not necessarily doing like hand cut collage. I'm not necessarily, like I'm not cutting up the analog film. I'm not doing anything like that. But I do like working like specifically with analog film because of the textile and like the textures. And so for me, a lot of the hand cut, I guess I'm gonna call it hand cut because I'm using my hands. It happens on the timeline. It happens when I'm assembling my images on, I use Premiere, when I'm assembling my images on the timeline. A lot of the time, like I don't really have a specific sort of plan or like idea in my head of like what the images that I've just shot, that I've just processed are going to turn out as. And so through my experimentations like on the timeline is how I sort of create those. And it's so using those digital tools, I guess, on the timeline to sort of, and it would be the same, like, because it could happen, like physically, like I could take those things and like do it, but with the skill set that I have and sort of, I know I'm more of the technical side of it, I'm able to sort of take those sort of techniques of hand cut and apply it to the digital aspect of it.
Right. And so how did you come to use collage as a visual technique as a filmmaker? I know you talked a lot about this cut and paste happening, you know, on the timeline, on the, you know, the platforms and software that you use, but talk to us about this intersection of being a filmmaker and also working through cut and paste and this idea of remix culture.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I never used the word collage to describe my work before this. I remember when I saw like the call out for this and I was reading the description of it, you know, talking about remixing and, you know, taking these images and creating new ones and sort of, and I was like, that's what I do. I was like, this is like literally what I do. And so I had never thought about it in that sense of like, of like collaging, and now I'm looking back at everything that I do and I'm like, that's exactly what it was. And so like just like with talks with like stylo and stuff like that, like I'm coming to realize you know, finding this, you know, community of, you know, Black artists and specifically like Black collagists where, you know, going to school, I mean, I always thought, I'm like, I can't be the only person out here who's trying to do things like this within the Black community. And so with my two films, The Shirley Card and Unembracing the Stranger, which you folks will be able to see next week, that's sort of, The Shirley Card was sort of where I begun that experimentation. When I went in to go shoot the film, I knew what images I was going to be recreating, you know, iconic scenes from various films. And if folks don't know, The Shirley Card essentially is a film that takes a look at Kodak's like skin tone cards that they had used to calibrate their film stock. And so when you would shoot people of color, anybody with darker skin tone on it, we wouldn't show up how we were supposed to. And so with that, when I was shooting it, I was like, I have no idea what this film is gonna look. It was supposed to be like 20 minutes long. I think it's like 5 minutes now or something like that. And so all those experimentations that I did with the overlaying of the images, it happened on the timeline when I was just trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to put us in these scenes? How am I going to put us in these scenes so that, you know, we can see ourselves reflected and question why it's come to be that anyways. And then for my second film, Unembracing the Stranger, I made that film last year, so there's like a 3-4 year gap between those two films where I developed my craft as a filmmaker and as an editor, where I now have this more tools to do the collaging and the remixing, and you can see more of that in Unembracing the Stranger with the overlays and such. And then on top of that as well, the audio aspect for me was really a key part of it as well, like collaging the audio. and taking, different sounds from, people whose words have like inspired me and who I like relate to, and, taking things from like Blaxploitation films, and remixing it all together so that it, it becomes its own track to complement the images as well. So yeah, kind of an amalgam of a lot of stuff.
I mean, I'm so excited for people to be able to check it out during the exhibition. It sounds amazing. And a lot of Black artists will take up the Shirley card in their work and redefine the narrative around it, or just bring awareness to this idea of the Shirley card. So I'm really excited to hear about, the work that you've created for the exhibition, and to just look at it and watch it. And, now that I have this understanding of ways that you've incorporated collage and cut and paste into your work, it's going to be really exciting to see. Faiza, I also wanted to pose this question to you as well. What is your connection to hand cut collage in art making?
Well, collage, like hand cut collage for me, like is actually one of the, when I did do a piece for the Museum of Fine Arts in Montreal, it was sort of a hand cut collage. Well, it was a collage, a digital collage on like re-looking at Picasso and stuff, and for me it was just an opportunity to be able to bring in different material, and just so I use like archives, and it was me being able to use archives. Like I'm very much into archiving, and even in my work right now, it's actually using photos that my father, like their family photos, and it's photos that my father took in Congo, like so during his youth. So from around 60s till like 1990s and stuff. So it's like very much like part of my family. Like it's very, yeah, it's just like very close to me. And so for me, collages it's giving me the opportunity to be able to incorporate it within my work, and not just as a way to be like, oh, these are like archives, these are like photos of my family. And whoa, sorry y'all, I don't know what just happened.
I like too. Like I was just lights cut, so something.
Yeah. And so for me, that was what like, yeah, that's what like collages really allows me to do. It's just like being able to use archives. Yeah, I think that's
right. No, it's a great response. I know, and we have a few questions to unpack this idea of archive and sourcing. So I'm excited to build on that a little bit more. MK, I would like to pose the same question to you. What's your connection to hand cut collage in art making? And I think, I'm going to pose this to you later, Ghislain, and then we're going to actually just go through and look at your work a little bit, so folks can attribute to what you're saying to the work that's within the exhibition.
So I think for myself, I think my connection to hand cut collage sort of began from a place of just like wanting to articulate something that I just couldn't find the words to do. And it started as an individual practice, but then sort of branched out into this sort of thing where I was doing with people. And so through that, I think I was able to sort of really like find ways to communicate things that like that I didn't know that I was carrying, but also connect with people who also I feel like were looking to release or express things that they also didn't know they were carrying, because we don't sort of start with like, this is what I'm going to create, or you know what I mean? Right. So, and when it comes to like the actual like feeling of just like the tactile feeling of cutting like the hand cut collage, I find that it's usually just this thing where like I have this urge, I feel it in my bones. There's something that needs to come out, and I just look through magazines, and just there's like multiple phases or stages to the process. And I think that I spend the most time, or I spend a good chunk of my time just looking through magazines, because I think when there's something that needs to come out in me, looking through the magazines, looking through archives is the thing where I'm just looking for that message. And so, and that takes time. So that takes time. That takes a lot of magazines. That takes a lot of like, a lot of just back and forth. And so I think that's kind of what my connection to Hand Cut Collage has been so far. And it's I like it.
Yeah, I also appreciate that you've connected collage to the body and this tactile experience of cutting and needing to cut. So again, I'm excited to unpack that a little bit as well, but I know that I've done like a few collage workshops, and like the room is silent and everyone's just like really cutting and moving through, and it's like a body movement exercise of sorts. So yeah, I really like that you mentioned that as well. And just talk to us about your connection to art making and collage in this process as it intersects with your practice.
Yeah, with collage, I just did very casually for many years. A lot of it came through like sketching. So I would just constantly collect magazines, photos, materials, and I eventually moved to, like a couple of years ago, collecting even just sounds like within our environment. And so I just kept hoarding materials and things, and I was like, what is my relationship to them? A lot of times I didn't have the answer as to why I kept these things or why I felt that they were important to keep within my life, but they were just there. And so eventually over time I started to see patterns of when I go into creating an art piece, I would look back at all the things that I collected, and I started to see patterns, or I started to see relationships between them that I originally didn't see, or one in which like I collected the sound maybe from 2 years ago, and then I had like a photo or image that I had from like 10 years ago, and there was a relationship between the two that I could see within them. So it kind of eventually came where collage kind of merges like the past with the present and the future, and that's something that I keep within it that sort of slowly became an artistic practice. And as well, keeping in mind that like the pieces that I are making and continue to make are never complete. They're just always incomplete.
Okay. Well, that's a great notion on, because I know completion for artists is like so nebulous, and there's artists who are always chasing completion, or they just kind of know when something is done. But it's great to hear for you that almost all your work, or all of it, is actually in that incomplete stage. I'm going to put up the editorial insert here, and I'm going to start with your work, if Adobe will cooperate. Doesn't look like it's going to, so I'm going to finesse it really quickly. But the next question I have for all of the other panelists, but I'll pose it to you, Ghislain, first, is what does your sourcing practice or your method look like? Where do you find some of these sounds and these works that speak to each other from years apart? I think everyone's practice in terms of sourcing is so different. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about yours, and I'm just going to throw up your work on our screen right now. This is the hardest part of Zoom stuff, is just figuring out how to do your screen shares. But on the right side of the screen is some of your work, Ghislain. So just talk us through your sourcing practice. Where do you find your stuff? How do you build them?
So yeah, like I have an obsession with collecting, and sometimes I just take pictures of things that I see within my environment, or recording sounds. So it's a lot to do with like my relationship to the community or the environment or to people. I can't really work within a bubble or have sources within a bubble that I just like, I don't know, go on the internet and find the materials and pick pieces from. I find that within letting it happen, that becomes my materials.
Right.
So within, like, for instance, this piece, I went to a vintage market, and there was just this lady that I was talking to who was showing me some of like her antique, it was like a magazine with antique faces, and it was really interesting learning about like the different styles. And I just picked one up, and then I left it to the side when I got home and didn't look at it for a couple months. And then a little later, I looked at it again, and there was an image that stuck out to me, and it was very precious to me. And of course, for some reason, I just decided that I'm going to rip it and take a chance with it. And then, so when I took a chance in destroying something that was very precious, it kind of disrupted the idea that something has to be kept in order for it to be important, and in a way, like, not disrupting the piece. I don't know, like it just was something where I was like, I just had to do it, and I did the urge, and in a way it just made it to me more valuable when it was broken.
Right.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It answered it beautifully. And also, I mean, the floor is open to kind of anyone to jump in as well. So Pamela, Stylo, other artists, if you want to respond to some of like the gems that these artists are dropping, please do. But I know when you were just talking about this vase and like this image being so precious to you, and then you say, and then I ripped it. The type A person, the non-visual artist, I mean, it's just like, oh my God, my heart's bleeding. But you know, through that destruction leads to this beautiful creation. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. MK, I would love to learn a little bit more about your sourcing practice as well. I know you mentioned just flipping through, you know, magazines and bodies of work, but I'm scrolling all the way up to your work within the editorial insert, and just talk us through your sourcing practice as well.
So I think I'm a bit of a hoarder as well in a way. Like, I don't know, there's just something about collecting conversations, just many different, like, in sounds too. I just realized, yeah, my voice note section is just full of, you know, recorded conversations. But in terms of like the material that I use, I like magazines that I find anywhere, like in any sort of space, like doctors' offices that they're not going to use the magazines, I ask to take them. Different art space.
You ask? I just
like, I don't want to get in trouble. Let me just ask you know.
I love it.
Different art spaces that don't like, that'll get rid of their magazines. I'll just be like, can I just have them or something like that. Recently, I have a collection of like onion peels that I want to, like the Spanish onions with like the peachy red, peachy onion peels, and I want to use them in my work. But I don't know how that's going to happen because they're very delicate, but I'm just so inspired by the texture of like this onion peel. And so it can really be anything. Yeah. There's this kind of like the tissue paper that like, the translucent kind of tissue paper that is kind of here in this work, that I'm also like, that I think felt most connected to in terms of how it can communicate like the way people experience like the phrase, oh, seeing red, or what it means for someone to like have a red eye, and like connecting that to spirituality and what it means in my culture. So it's really anything and everything like around me. I think textures are like something that I want to experiment more with, but as of right now, like, sometimes I'll place bids on eBay for like very vintage magazines, and that's also like a skill, like to
it's not easy work.
It's not easy work at
not
all.
For the faint of heart. I do the same thing.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I've tried, and that like, you know, I need more practice in, but that's kind of where it starts for me, and it's fun. Like my eyes are just always open to what can be used and how I can use it to sort of communicate these things, you know?
I think it's interesting that you mentioned, you know, like your sourcing, and I'm sure for other people as well, like spans organic material, you know, tissue paper. It's quite expensive. And so I think that's really interesting as well. That's not something that I personally, being outside of this discipline, would immediately think about in terms of, you know, collage and your traditional cut and paste collage. But it just speaks to the expansiveness of the discipline and of the medium. So I'm excited to see your work that features Spanish onion. Please let me know when I can come see it, or what gallery it'll be in. I think it's gonna be dope.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. You know, we've done a lot about, you know, speaking about like magazines and cutting and pasting, but, you know, Sonia, I know you mentioned a lot of this work for you is on the timeline. As a filmmaker, where does this sourcing practice look like for you? Where do you source the content that makes its way into the work that you create?
So sort of going off I steal things. I steal things. I can speak specifically for, so for my film, The Shirley Card, when I knew that I wanted to like recreate sort of like iconic like themes in cinema, I just got onto Google and I was like, and I put in you know, these films, and so I played them off of YouTube, and I had Bolex cameras, a 60mm camera, and I shot that like black and white film stock, high contrast, because I knew I wanted to hand process that film, so like the act of physically working with the film. And so yeah, I took all of that, and I knew, and like with this idea of like remixing, like I knew I was going to be messing around with the images and through my process, and so yeah, I stole all of those things, and then I remixed them in the edit process and on the timeline. But with that as well, in the Shirley Card, I mean, I also I took and you'll hear there's drumming throughout, and I took that drumming from a film that I had made the previous year, which featured my mom and my sister, and so that drumming is my mom and my sister going back and forth. And then when we get to Unembracing the Stranger, which is a film that I made 4 years after the Shirley Card, I took the raw images that I had from the Shirley Card, and I remixed my own footage, my own film to create this. And at the time that I had made it, I hadn't realized it being like a sort of like a call and response to each other, because I had also made Unembracing the Stranger in the midst of trying to when all those protests and like everything was happening and just like collective Black trauma, and I needed a way to sort of process it, and the best way I knew how to do that was through making films. And so I sourced my own film in that case, and I remixed it to do that. And it's the same thing with like the audio, where like folks were saying like recorded conversations, and like I'll just turn my phone on, I'm just going on wherever, as well as, you know, taking things from just like older films as well, like I had mentioned, like the Blaxploitation films, you know. I mean, I guess I stole The Breakfast Club and and all those other films that you will see. So yeah, that's sort of my process of sourcing and remixing.
Right. I love the idea of remixing one's own work too, right? You know, just taking your work and reincorporating it, remixing it. And I don't know if steal is the word. I mean, maybe it is, but like borrow, strong lending, long-term lending.
I'm sampling things. I'm
sampling. Yeah, you know, we got your back when the lawyers come calling. It's okay.
Thank you.
And Faiza, please tell us a little bit about what your sourcing process looks like as well. I know you talked a lot about, for the work in this exhibition, using archival work and family photos. But, you know, for someone who's so appreciative of archive work, what does that process look like for you? I'm sure it might be a lot of eBay bidding as well, or really digging in the crates.
Actually, I would say like similarly to Sonia, I would say like I'm not gonna say I steal, but yeah, like I don't think it's stealing, because so it actually also makes me reflect. Like often, you go, like if you're looking for, like, for example, like colonial photos on Congo or something, the people who have it are like these old white men or like family members, right? And so it's like, for me, it's also a part of like reclaiming those photos and those images as like ours. And so yes, so for me it's like I kind of go everywhere. Like I go to like Valley Village, I buy things, and like I yeah, I've been really into going into like Valley Village or like other stores and finding like old books and just like using them. I really relate to what Ghislain said about like finding something that is precious and then like ripping it apart and just being like, oh, well, I can use this for something else. So there's also that. And because I also feel like there's a certain limitation, like I can't rip family photos apart. So I like often, like when it comes to like family photos, I'll have to like either like scan them and then like work around with them. And like a lot of like my inspiration sometimes comes from like actually organizing like our family photos and being like, oh, I want to do something with that, or like there's these two images and like they really mean something to me and stuff. Like for example, the ones that are here, it's like my grandma, and then that's like the hands of like the multiple grandmas that I've lived with. And so for, yeah, it's like also a moment of like remembering family and stuff. And so yeah, like it comes from everywhere. And for me, like collages was just like, especially during the pandemic, like it was a moment for me to just like be able to sit and ground myself. And so just like going through those magazines, going through photos, like it just like, I just felt so yeah, I felt very grounded, and it was just a moment where I could forget whatever was going on around in the world or whatnot, and just like sort of be like, well, I'm just gonna sort of express myself in that way. Yeah, so
I think this is such a beautiful conversation as well, talking about sourcing. Because I imagine, 1 year from now or 10 years from now, 50 years from now, someone's going to bring out this pitch magazine and be like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. This is the one photo that I need. Or they might just save it and wait, and see how it speaks to other work that they're doing. And so I echo what you were saying, Stylo, about the importance of archiving and printing Black work. And this certainly adds to that body of work and this canon of Blackness that can be used for the creation and recreation of work, whether it's collage or other pieces as well. So I think this is all great.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, of course, please.
In terms of sourcing and stuff. So I use like not National Geographic magazines. I use a lot of them in my work. And oftentimes, unfortunately for me, is where I find like Black people, like, but depicted in ways that are often like dehumanizing and poorly represented. And so I think magazines like Pitch magazines are so profound in their making, because it's how can we represent ourselves, like, you know what I mean? And how can we, like, because I'm like, when I'm cutting through these magazines and I'm thinking like, first of all, the stories of these people, we don't, there's a disconnect, right? And so a part of like, and I think that does so little and so much to everything, because I'm like, okay, in the remixing in my work, whatever, there's something about creating a new narrative, there's something about creating a new story, but also at the same time, how unethical it almost feels for me sometimes, to source from or to create a story from a people or a place that like there's just like no connection to, in a way, right? And so I think that's why like Pitch magazine is so important, and also collage work is so important, because it allows for the recreating of narratives, and so yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and that goes to what Faiza was mentioning of the reclaiming, right? We know that a lot of the people who are creating this content and a lot of this media were not Black people. And, yes, it's beautiful photography, but it's the way in which people are being photographed and commemorated and archived. And it's that flipping the script, it's that changing the narrative, it's that reclaiming, like allowing them to come home to something that's a little more familiar, changing that narrative. And yeah, pitch does that as well. I really appreciate you bringing that up, 100%.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's also, it brings up the question of ethics as well. I mean, it doesn't bring up, you brought it up, MK, when you talk about the ethics of collage and the items that you source. And I know this wasn't something that we discussed earlier, but does anyone, maybe stylo or yourself or Pamela, want to speak towards the ethics or your personal ethics when it comes to what you use in terms of sourcing for your work, and just how you handle this question of like, you and your personal morals and politics and ethics as a whole in terms of remixing and sourcing or borrowing or taking to create work?
I'll jump in. I think, you know, going back to when I was half joking about, you know, stealing magazines out of doctors' offices and whatever, I guess it's a little self-serving, but I kind of see myself as like rescuing these images. Like, you don't belong here. Like, I know that you've been placed here and I know that you've been presented here for this type of consumption, but I know in my soul and in my bones, like MK was saying, like, you do not belong here. I'm going to take you back. I'm going to rescue you. I'm going to bring you back into the fold, and I'm going to give you and adorn you with, you know, a world and an environment that is safe, that is nurturing, that is beautiful, and giving that back into the world as like, this is how you're supposed to be. Yeah, as far as ethics, you know, because I source specifically Black people and content featuring Black people, it's already hard. And as a collage artist, I do prefer older content because of the idea of copyright, not wanting to, of course, step on the toes of very talented photographers that I love, and, you know, whose works I'm pretty sure I've used in my own work. But I'd like to have that space of time, because there's something integral to showing that there's still relevance to something that is perceived as old or outdated or no longer needed. That's why I love working with old Jet magazines, of Ebony magazines, Essence magazines, I think Sonia had mentioned blaxploitation, or maybe it was Ghislain, like old blaxploitation images. So not necessarily movies with my creation, but like photographs from that time, black and white photographs, family photographs too, definitely. But the ethics for me personally in my art making practice is how much, or how would this person or photographer, if they were to see my collage, would they feel I either desecrated their work, or if I just plagiarized or like ripped them off. So it's really more of a logistical. And of course, when it comes to the photographers of National Geographic, I'm not worrying about whether or not they feel I desecrated their work. That is not what I'm implying. But with the project that I'm working on currently, I'm using a few images that are much more recent, probably within the last 5-10 years, just because of issues with sourcing what I need. So that's kind of where questions of ethics kind of go into play for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I love that everyone also sources, like, I didn't think about it, but like I have so many voice notes on my phone of just like self-conversation, other like sneak conversations. The eBay thing, I was like, yes, whenever I can get a lot of books for like cheap shipping from the States, I'm like, yes, sign me up. So many different ways. Like I have an entire, I wish I could show you, a huge metal shelf that's coming out of my wall, and it's three out of like 6 shelves is just stacked with magazines and books, coffee table books. I love a good volage peruse to get some good coffee table books and magazines, donation bins, and then also just the gracious love of people. And I'm seeing some people in my community here tonight who have donated incredible things to me. Lisa, I see you. Hey, what's up? Thank you so much. You know, wonderful things that just kind of get passed on. And yeah, it's the idea of sitting on it and like, I'm not going to use it right away. Right. But then like Ghislain was mentioning, you know, maybe a couple months or a year down the line, you start seeing a pattern of like, I have a lot of these things. And that spurred my taxonomy of collections. So, you know, I have a collection of bodies and body parts. I have a collection of plants. I have a collection of gemstones. I have a collection of animals, and then like things or things I could consider as background. So like you start to see these patterns the more that you collect. And I think being a collage artist, you are inherently an archivist and a collector, and a hoarder, because I heard that word get thrown around and I was like, I am not, but no, we are. It's a tendency. It's the part and parcel, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so, I consider myself like a digital hoarder. And so I wasn't even going to bring up the H word, but like as the artists, as you folks kept mentioning, like you just collect, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is good. Like, it's not just me. It's like just collecting random things. And I don't even do collage, but like I have transfer bus receipts and all these things because I'm like, this is important to me and I'm not really sure why. And maybe I'll turn it into art, but I highly doubt.
Collaging of experiences. Collaging is so integral and a part of everything that the more I work with it as a process, is the more I see it's literally a part of everything.
Yeah.
We gather these memories as a collaging of experiences of our pasts. Just because it's not necessarily put together in a composition doesn't mean that, you know, like my apartment is a collage, your apartment is a collage, your shoebox of memories, you know, that is a collage. So
yeah. That's a great reframing.
Yeah, and even in this, oh, sorry. I was gonna say, even in this talk, as we're talking about collages or just things that we're really interested in, it's a collage way of thinking and discussing that we're bringing to the table, and we're creating a collage even in this discussion.
Exactly.
I needed to hear.
You are a collage artist, Adam, so don't worry.
I needed that like stamp of approval from one of you, so I appreciate that I got it from you just then. I'm cautious of time. I'm just doing a quick time check. We're at 7:30, so I've got like 1.5 questions for folks, but I think this is a good time to remind people. I see some questions in the Q&A. Anything that comes to mind, feel free to, you know, throw it in that Q&A, and I'd be more than happy to pose it to the panelists. As you know, this exhibition is, you know, the cut, the tear, the remix, and, you know, focusing on the Afrofuture. I'm curious how each of you individually access the Afrofuture in your work, whether it's in this exhibition or your work as a whole. And let's start with you, Faiza. How does the Afrofuture become accessed in your work?
Well, I think that someone had said it earlier on, like collage is like, it is the past, the present, and the future. Like it's all in one, and it's like you're continuously going in like within like time and space for me. Like it's like I think it was also mentioned, like the fact that Pitch is going to be, it's a publication, and there's like actually a possibilities that someone else is going to take one of our images and put it on something else and like create a collage with that. We're already accessing the future within that, and I just like I'm really into that. And so I also just like we're continuously creating the future. Like I think that like with it, even just in terms of like being Black, like you're continuously creating a future that you're unsure of, like because like I just think of like all these photos that, like, just going back to like my family, like all these photos that my dad took, and like while immigrating to Canada, like he felt like that was important for him to bring all these, like, I don't even know how he brought it, because like I mean like baggage weight and all that stuff, like really the most important thing was like these photos. And I remember asking him like, why did you think this was important? He was just like, well, we were gonna need memories, like, you know. And so I think collages is just like, it's working with time continuously. So
I think that's such a great note, working with time, because Sonia, when you were talking about like your cut and paste being on the timeline, I kept thinking like I knew what you meant in terms of like that physical timeline of like Final Cut Pro or whatever and scrubbing through the timeline, but there's also like this timeline, this like metaphysical timeline that you're working through, you know, accessing archival work and reinterpreting the Shirley card. So how does accessing the Afrofuture work for you and your practice? And I don't know if you want to touch on this idea of the timeline, but I know it was quite compelling for me. But, you know, the idea of the Afrofuture and how it intersects with your work is a question that I'm like really curious about, since at the beginning of the session, I was like, I want to know what Sonia thinks about this.
Yeah, for sure. So again, hasn't been until like the past like year or so that I realized unconsciously I was sort of, my work sort of encompassed the sort of like Afrofuture school of thought. And as over like the past little bit, I've been like thinking about just like with my own practice that I feel like in order for me to look towards to the Afrofuture, I have to go backwards. And so I need to, and specifically for myself, you know, getting an understanding of, you know, my history, and I'm from Uganda, so, you know, I'm really looking at, you know, the history of, you know, that region where my family's from, like in East Africa, and looking at, you know, before colonization, you know, what, in terms of, you know, how society functioned, in terms of gender identities, in terms of all these different things. And so I want to look back, and I want to get it can never be a full understanding, of course, but to know as much as like I feel like I need in order for me to look to the future to sort of see how that could have evolved without, you know, various interventions. So my practice, like right now, I'm sort of going backwards so that I can go forwards. And thinking about like the timeline, like I love everyone saying like the past, like the present, and the future, because within each of like my images, and it's funny to see my like stills of like my of my films like in this publication, because I'm looking at this still, and like for me, like I can see like within that still like my trying to evoke like that past, the present, and the future sort of like all in one. And like in my brain, that's what it looks like. It's like all mushed up and like jumbled together. And so on that timeline is where I'm able to sort of put it on screen. And again, like my work is very non-linear, so we're traveling through time all the way through. And because I also often think about my pieces as sort of like installations where folks can experience it on like this loop, you know, this time travel loop, you know, time in that way. So yeah, that's kind of.
I mean, Stylo did say in the chat, collage is time travel. So I mean, I think this totally encapsulates all of that. And this idea of, you know, going back to the past to build the present and the future just reminds me of the Sankofa principle of, you know, going backwards. And so I'm just like really appreciating everything that you're mentioning, and this idea of Afrofuturism and time and timelines, they all just so perfectly work with this idea of remix culture and the Afrofuturism. So I think Stylo, again, shout out to you for curating such an amazing group of artists, and shout out to the artists for creating such an amazing work to really speak in tandem with the project and the exhibition, and the work that everyone else is creating as well. Ghislain, I'm also curious how Afrofuturism manifests in your work, again, either in the exhibition or your work as a whole. And if you want to kind of comment on some of the other things we've spoken about in terms of time and you know, the Afrofuture, but the past and the current as well, or the past and the future.
Yeah, you guys worded it so perfectly. Like you literally took all the thoughts and ideas because they were just so amazing with the time and the with the present and the past and the future, and they all coexisting in one space with collage making and within the practice. So when I started to see that within collage making, it kind of opened up a door of opportunities in making new work where I wasn't just working in a linear path, where it was where I could think about three sorts of, I don't even know how to describe the words, but three sorts of time, presence and times, and merging them together. And as well as, like Sonia said, thinking about the past to kind of inform what you're doing in the present and in your artistic practice. That is something that I resonate with very deeply. I felt like before I didn't really consider myself an artist, and I didn't really know how I could identify in it or fit myself as one. And it wasn't until looking within the past that I started to see, okay, these are things that actually quite not only just inform what I'm going to be doing now, but what I want to intend on doing in the future. Right. So yeah, I don't know if I explained that at all but correctly, but I mean, again, you guys took the words right out of my mouth. It was amazing.
I think you did a beautiful job of explaining it. I was, vibing with you the whole time. And again, I know we're all kind of thinking of the same thing, but this idea of time and the ways that we access it and, randomly accessing it, sometimes stumbling upon work that speaks to other work 8 years from now. I think that part really resonated with me. As much as I love to hoard things, I do forget about their significance sometimes. So in the way that you've been able to keep this like catalog of like, I know these things that I have, and I know that there's not a place for it maybe now, but a place for it later, I think speaks really well to the way that you're able to interpret what you have in terms of a collage artist and build upon that. And then, certainly last but not least, Emkay, tell us a little bit about the Afrofuture and your work and how those intersections manifest.
So a lot of what everybody was saying like deeply resonates in terms of collaging, feeling, and being like, a sort of dance with time. We're going in, we're going out, we're going forward. We're like, there's a lot. It's rhythmic. It's movement. But I think for me, when trying to remember, there's a lot of there's all the fracturedness within being able to access things like memories, I guess, in my experience. I don't really have a lot of family photos to sort of construct or to remember like what a time was like, right? Or to remember what a moment was like. A lot of them got lost along the way when my parents immigrated here and just lost. So when I think about the future, I think about what I'm trying to find in a lot that has been lost and a lot that has been broken and fractured for me. And I think it's about create what am I trying to and I think that might be connected to this hoarding thing. I'm doing some psychology stuff, but I'm I don't want to lose anything. You know what I mean? I don't want to lose anything. I don't want to lose anything.
Response, right? It's a response to having lost something and preventing that from happening again.
Right. And so I feel that very intensely sometimes. So it's like the Afrofuturism of it. Sorry, I might be making up words on the spot, but
it's a real world. It's a real world.
Both exist.
It feels very I'm creating something just to be remembered, and it can be a trauma response. It can be whatever it is, but there's something that has to be remembered. From beginning to end, the process is very even the idea of okay, collecting these magazines and not knowing that I'm gonna what I'm gonna take from it, when I'm gonna take from it, you know what I mean? But knowing that I'm going to look at it in the future, you know what I mean? Knowing that I'm going to look at this thing and it's going to be a part of the production of something. It's going to be a part of, how I tell this story, how I speak or communicate, articulate this thing, you know what I mean? Right. So it's very, it's very holistic in the sense where from beginning to end, and even in the end, there's really no end, because I think Ghislain said this in the beginning, there's no really ending to a piece of something. I feel like there's a repurposing all the time. But
yeah, we're with you. We feel you. All this energy is coming across really clearly.
And this speaks to the complexity of what I was trying to grapple with in writing. Is there are so many moving parts in what I can see and perceive through all of these works together and separately, and just trying to funnel it all into a way that's easily consumable and digestible. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think panels like this are so crucial because we need to be able to jump off from one point and expand and talk about these things. Yeah.
And you remind me to also big up another really great part of the editorial insert in Pitch Magazine. Stylo has written a truly beautiful, I mean, I'm not even sure if I can call it an essay, it's a manifesto,
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful just brainchild of all the thinking that you've done. I had such a great time reading it, truly. I was like, who do I pay for accessing this? And I know, so is another incentive.
Send your money to pitch.
As another incentive to, you know, purchasing or pre-ordering the magazine. Not only are you reading these artist statements and looking at the work of the artist, but it starts off with like, I don't know how many words you can tell me, but like a truly beautiful, just kind of delving into the Afrofuture remix culture and Stylo's just thinking, beautiful mastermindful thinking of conceptualizing this exhibition. So, I mean, truly, you mentioned the writing. It's like, yeah, I meant to like mention that too. It's like a sea of writing, but it's very beautiful and deep.
Thank you.
Sea, so
I had a lot of amazing help. Pamela, of course, being, oh, what a savior in nights where I would just be like tearful, like I can't get the words out. I can't. Pamela, so amazing. Thank you so much for helping me with that. And my incredible advisory team of Betty Julian, Leticia Cosbert-Miller, and Quentin Versetti, like, like incredible people, creators of culture, preservers of culture who are helping me do the same thing. Really, honestly, and truly a labor of love. I am so proud of it because I do not like to write. At all. And this was a really beautiful culmination. And it's because I love everyone's work as well. Like it was a way for me to say thank you. And it was a way for me to say, literally, I love you. I love your work. I love the practice. I love what you do. So to the artists here tonight, I do hope that the written piece does do your work justice, because that was the ultimate goal in this. So yeah, I'm really so excited for everyone to see it. It's so good.
It's all like, there's just kind of too much goodness happening, which is also why we have 3 events, because there's just like,
it's a lot.
Yeah, there's digital, there's like live coding and this panel, and there's a panel next week. I mean, there's just so much to like unpack and celebrate as part of this exhibition. So, you know, definitely stay tuned for more. I have some final questions, and then we're gonna kind of say goodbye for the evening, which is like obviously the hardest part. But I want to start with Emkay. I'll just ask you, because it hasn't come up yet, and I know you were talking about loving the experience of cutting and just like being with this like tactile experience and the experience in your body. So walk us through a little bit about how you approach collage as a breathing practice, because I know you mentioned that in your bio, and I think you and Stylo have spoken about this, or it's come up. I don't know much about it, so I'm very curious, but I imagine folks watching are also like, their interests are quite piqued right now. So talk us through this approach to collage as a breathing practice.
Yeah, no, actually, I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier about like when in the space of when people are collaging, it's just super quiet.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, it feels like a very somatic experience for me, where it's like, it's one of the only times, not only times, but I notice that as there's a cutting happening, whether in cutting from, you know, a magazine or something, like it's one of the only times I realize that like where I'm fully breathing. Like oftentimes like that's just not happening for us. And so when I could do something that involves like my full range of breath, that's something that I'm going to want to return to, right? That's something that I'm going to want to like stay in for as long as possible. And then also share that experience with other people, because you know, it's good for us to breathe, you know. We have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, full range, full belly, in and out, you know, top to bottom. Like that's so important for like, so Afrofuture is wellness too, you know, and the connection and the relationship between collaging and the body and like, you know, just everything. It's interconnected. They all influence each other. And so it definitely is a breathing practice for me. And I think that when I get to be in a space where I'm doing that with other people, it feels just very special and very like, it feels very present. It's a very present like moment. It's a moment where I'm like showing up presently and just I'm here, and it's a now thing where I'm not, we talk about time traveling, but I'm nowhere else but in that moment, in that
you're
space.
Online.
Exactly.
You're no, I get that. I get
you know
that. And you know, I've had experience running workshops in the past based around collage, but before we even reach the scissors and the glue and the magazines is we open a circle, we take 3 breaths together, and we talk about, why are you here today? What's got you stuck? The Unstuck series that I ran a couple years ago was one of the best experiences I ever had, because I was kind of bringing in my practice as a movement practitioner. Shout outs to Good Body Feel, love you guys. So I was bringing in that practice, and then my visual arts and creative practice, and seeing how they are one and of the same. Like you do need to be mindful and to kind of drop down into your body and take a few deep breaths and kind of connect with what's in front of you. So yeah, I'm so glad we brought that up, because like that was one of the things that when I first spoke with MK, I was like, oh my God, MK gets it. This is it. This is the magic, the energy that drives not only collage, but creating in a community.
Right.
So,
yeah. I was also gonna say, like, I just think of like the idea of like doing mood boards at the beginning of the year, and just like sitting down and creating like a meditation space for you to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna think of like my past year and like what do I want, and then like being able to actually be in that practice of like cutting up things and like recreating, and sort of like meditation, but also how can I say, like projecting yourself within the future, and like being like, hey, these are the things that I want to like accomplish, and like even seeing those images. Like a lot of my collages like are all over like my house, like my room and everything, and for me it's like it's just a reminder for me continuously that like I have that space to return to, like that is a space that I can always return to when things are overwhelming and whatnot. So yeah, I very much relate to that.
The visioning, it's like the practice of visioning.
I love how the conversation has transitioned into collage as an act of mindfulness, as an act of community building, as an act of, you know, breathing and physicality, because it's all those things. But, you know, like I've only done like 1 collage workshop in my life, like 1.5, but I, like, from what I understand, like you folks have really been not only in the discipline, but in spaces where there are people who are collectively doing this, whether you're mood boarding on your own or mood boarding with people or leading workshops. And so there's a uniqueness that I think exists in the medium and the discipline of collage as a form of community building and mindfulness that I'm glad that this conversation kind of circled to and explored. I hate to be this person, but you know, I'm doing a quick time check and we've got 10 minutes. So I'm going to kind of go around and ask everyone what you're currently working on. And then we're going to open the floor to some audience Q&A. But I want to begin with you, Sonya. Tell us about the future of your work, the future of Sonya. Where are we seeing you next? What are you working on? And how can we follow the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so actually, April's been a really busy month. I actually have a couple of things that I've worked on. One of them, which I think you folks would be interested in, is one of my films is a part of this online exhibition called the Archive of Forgetfulness, put on by the Goethe Institute in South Africa, and basically it's a
I love it.
And it's an archive of African voices, and you know it also there's some like collage work in there, there's films, short essays, and again, like it's an archive of you know, the African continent and the diaspora. So I'll put all like the links in the chat.
I was just gonna say, like, please put it in.
In the chat. I'll put the links in the chat. And then another thing that I have going on this month was I curated a space with the Canadian Filmmakers Distribution Center, which again, it's a collage of queer identities. It is a like choose and navigate your own space kind of thing, where you can see what it is that they had with like in their collection. There's music, there's poetry. So again, I will link that in the chat. And like as for the future, like a few of like my main collaborators and we have a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year. So yeah, that's what I'm up to now.
The future is so bright, Sonia. Like truly, I think you just spend the rest of the 10 minutes, just turn your camera off and type all where we can. Just put it all in the chat and I'll save it because that's really.
I'll put the links in. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing that. Angelo, I want to ask you, Angelo, what's next for you? What's going on? I know this magazine is quite an endeavor of yours, but are there other ways that you're expressing yourselves or other issues that are coming up, and how do we keep up with the great work that you're doing?
Yeah, so for me, right now, I'm just working on exams.
Yeah.
Next week. Well, my exams are next week, so that's what I'm focused on. But in terms of pitch, I'm hoping to do a next issue in the fall this time. Last year was just one issue for the year, but I did get funding to do another one, so I'm excited for that. I'll work on it over the summer. Shout out Pamela, she wrote me the reference letter.
Shout out Pamela.
Thank you for that, and thank you to Stylo as well, and to Dana, because you guys just made this like what it was.
Nice.
And what it is, and I appreciate you guys.
We're proud of you, man.
Yeah,
it's one hell of an issue. We're really proud of you. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I should also mention, like, I think I often hear, and even in this session I'm hearing it, there's like certain people who just serve as this amazing like catalyst to people's careers or people who are starting out. And Pamela, I just have to say, you are certainly one of those people. I think every time that you have been like you are such an incredible springboard for Black artists and Black people in communities. So I'm just so grateful that you're part of all this. And I know you're here on the call, but I just kind of want to reopen the floor to you for a minute and just ask, what are you up to? Where can we follow you? And also just thank you for inspiring and supporting and being a catalyst for like the great Black minds and creatives who are out here trying to do what we do.
For me, my job as a curator is putting artists first out, you know what I mean? Like first and foremost. I mean, I'm inspired by what everybody does, and, I think about Sonia, and you're quoting James Baldwin, who I've been kind of turned into a lot, and it's like thinking about artists like him, artists like all of you, who talks about how we carry our history, with us, and we are creating it every day, and the importance of this work, of this archive, of what we're doing. And, the remix is about that. The remix is about, capturing that moment for, the past, present, and future. And I'm just inspired. I'm inspired. I feel fortunate, to be part of this event, of being part of this, community. And you think about collage, I'm from Quebec, so, I got my little Frenchy side to me, even though my folks are from Scotia, but it's this idea of gluing, right? Gluing together, of knitting the community together. And I think that, in this moment, that's what we need to be doing, right? It's just kind of like continuing to be inspired by each other and supporting each other and like, bigging each other up, because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to kind of, keep being inspired and keep working at it. And I just want to be the one who can be a support in whatever way I can. And so for me, I'm just excited about the future. I'm excited about the show. I'm excited about, having, sharing it with folks And so I thank you all for being here, and I thank you for having, giving me the opportunity to be, to do my part. So that's it. You know what I mean?
And it's a big part, you say do your part, but it's a large part of it. So we're all just very, appreciate
integral
all that you do. I'm just looking at my phone. We got 5 minutes left.
Oh, we got 5 minutes. All right, I'll log off.
No, don't log off. Just tell us.
Thank you. Oh. I'll mute.
I was gonna ask you, Ghislain, to tell us a little bit about the future and what the future looks like for you. How do we keep up on the work that you're doing? And what are you working on?
Yeah, so right now I'm just finishing exams. Hopefully I pass. And just continuing just experimenting with what my artistic practice is. I'm fully starting to see what it is that I'm making, and I'm really excited about that because I've been in the desert for years trying to figure out what it is that I'm doing. But yeah, and I wrapped up a collage film that I just made recently in collaborations with Mapua University in the Philippines. So I'm really excited for that to come out within the summer with a screening with 13 to 15 other artists from across the globe.
That's incredible. I'm so excited and moved by this level of international work that's happening here as well. I know Sonia in South Africa and Ghislain in the Philippines. So I'm not sure if it's a byproduct of COVID and that we're able to do this, but I'm so glad to hear that. And anything that you can throw in the chat for us to be able to continue following you and your work, please do share that with us. Faiza, same question to you. What are you doing in the future? What are you currently working on? How can all the good folks on this call continue to follow the amazing work that you're doing?
To be honest, I'm just continuing to just create. I don't have anything specific in the future as of right now, but I'm someone who's always picking up new skills or new endeavors. So I'll definitely just keep everyone posted. But yeah, so I'm actually just taking a break right now. I also just finished my year in school, so I'm I might just do some collages just to calm down a bit. And yes, so yeah,
I love that. I also shout out to all the students. I loved and hated school, so just the word exam, I'm really sweating a little bit. I can't wait to get off of this call.
So much trauma responding from that. Good on all of you.
Really,
congratulations.
For sure. And I wish you all the best on your exams, for real. I know it's a weird time to be in school. So you're launching a magazine, Angelo, you got exams coming up. I don't know how you do it, but I hope you're taking breaks and taking care of yourself, and good luck to you as well, Ghislain. And then last but not least, MK, what are you working on? What's the future looking like for you? How can your fans on this call follow you?
So similar to everybody else, I'm working on assignments,
Right.
Trying to. So that's happening for me, but I think when I do have the time to not think about assignments, I'm just playing around. Lately, I've just been playing around with incorporating just paints and pastels and just different sort of colors and things, just getting my hands messy, you know what I mean? I recently not discovered, but rediscovered pastels, and I'm just wow, this is fun. I remember just playing with them as a child, and so I'm just playing around with different sort of materials to see how I can use, how these things can be used as another way of articulating things. But it's also just fun to just get my hands dirty and or messy and just be in that place for a minute, so that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm looking forward to when I submit these assignments, so that I can just breathe and do the things that sort of facilitate that deep breathing, so which is collaging and so much more. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
Love it. I have an amazing audience question that I'm going to post to the group in general, and whoever kind of wants to come forward and answer it, please do. I won't pose it to anyone in particular. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. This one's from Ashley. It seems like collage really zooms in on our processes of creating meaning. As collage artists, what have you learned about yourself through collage, especially in relation to diving into the past to create new visuals, narratives, and creative futures? Lovely question. Thank you, Ashley. You have a career in moderation. That's a great question. So I'll read it again, but anyone who wants to kind of come forward and answer this question, I invite you to. So as collage artists, what have you learned about yourself through collage, especially in relation to diving into the past to create new visuals, narratives, and creative futures?
I think I'll just start by, like, can I answer?
Yeah, of course.
There's so much that I feel like I've learned and I continue to learn about myself through collage. But I think the one thing is that there's always like a meeting of myself. Like there's always an arriving to like a version of myself or a different part of myself, like a different, again, I'm really obsessed with the body. So it's like a different part of my body through collaging. And so in terms of what I've learned, like, I think that the list can go on, the conversation can go on forever, but I think for me, it's like there's just this return to myself and to like a different version each time. So I think that's what I appreciate deeply about it, is that it allows me to connect, like to just engage in a relationship with myself that explores questions and everything like on different levels. So
right. Thank you, appreciate that. And I know Faiza, you want to answer this as well?
Yeah, so for me, like even the ways in which I like got into collage was also a way, like I just find I do photography, and often I find photography is very, like it can be very objectifying, like it is intrusive, even if you, no matter what you want to do, like you are, it's a continuous like conversation with others who are like pretty much your objects, and so like subjects I want to say. And so to me, collages is just a moment where like I can create art with myself, and first and foremost for myself. Like it's not really like I didn't actually expect that I was gonna like showcase this. Like this was supposed to be just like in my space. And so yeah, I very much like relate to that, MK. And like, and it's a way that I just don't feel as like there's so much eyes and so much judgment as when I take photos. Like it's just it's different. Like it's so intimate with, like it's an intimate conversation with myself, and if people end up seeing it and interacting with it, I've already kind of like I'm at peace with it, because I know that it has to be with me. But when it's like someone else who's in front of the camera and I'm portraying someone else, I just get so much anxiety around like, what does the person even see? And like, are they okay with the way that they look and whatnot? Like, there's just so much more. Yeah, I just feel like there's so much more like anxiety and others in that conversation when it comes to like me taking a photo. But collage is just like so much more personal, I find.
Right. Thank you for that response. We have reached the end of this epic, beautiful 2-hour conversation. I'm so grateful to everyone who stayed here with us. Like the numbers have really not changed that much. Thank you to all of you artists. I mean, you have sat through an amazing and like very compelling conversation. If you really driven it and propelled it forward, we've touched on things that I didn't even imagine we were going to touch on. So I've put the link to where you can pre-order, issue 2 of Pitch Magazine. I encourage everyone to do so. I want to just open my heart and say thank you so much, Sylo and Pamela, for such an amazing exhibition. Pamela, thanks so much for working with us on such an amazing opportunity, such an amazing program. Faiza, Ghislain, Sonia, Angelo, MK, like thank you for being here. Thank you for responding to the call. Thank you for putting your work forward. And I just want to quickly open the floor, Sylo and Pamela, if you have thanks that you want to give to folks as we log off. But
Just great, just giving thanks to everybody. Thank you so much. Elise, I see in the chat, thank you so much for posting the link for next week's event. For everyone who's still here hanging with us, this has been the quickest 2-hour panel for me. I absolutely love chatting and chilling with you all. This has been, it didn't even feel like a presentation. It felt like we were just chilling and chatting about cut and paste, which is what I love to do. So please sign up for the next event. We're gonna go to the other side and kind of talk about like digital collage and kind of how that's a thing. But yeah, I'm thankful to Pamela, I'm thankful to the museum, I'm thankful to Nia. This has been great. Adam, thank you for organizing a wonderful event evening. It flowed so wonderful. Thank you. Angelo, thank you so much for just being so open and willing to just kind of experiment with what we can do with this magazine. And I can't emphasize enough how beautiful this is. So everyone make sure you go and get your copy. I see someone in there already in the chat said they ordered issue 2. Get on it because it will sell out. And just thank you to everyone for support. Black Arts is always and forever, and you just need to give it the praise and the love and attention like you would a beautiful orchid. Shout outs to DMX because I know everyone knows what meme I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm just full of gratitude.
Same. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, this is the hard part where I have to hit end.
I
So
know.
I'm stalling, but like my back hurts, and so we've got to go. But thank you so much, everyone. You know, follow the McMaster Museum of Art, follow Nia Centre, follow stylo. You know, we're out here just pumping up great content, and you can continue to follow us and the artists, learn more about them, check out their Instagrams, read their bios. Okay, I'm gonna go because I'm stalling. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.